Well, what do we have here? I'm coming back to the world of Formula 1 to predict 2025's grid. This silly season is going to be an all-timer, I think, this year. We've already got Lewis Hamilton moving to Ferrari, which leaves Carlos Sainz without a seat. My initial predictions had both of those two down for staying, so I have had to make a few changes. So, yeah, that's just to address the elephant in the room anyway. But let's get right into it. Red Bull, I'm going to go with Max Verstappen and Carlos Sainz. I don't think Carlos Sainz has even been linked with Red Bull, but for some reason, I can kind of see it happening. He's going to want another seat that is top. He's not going to want to go down the field, and Red Bull are already proven. He would be Max's number 2, but he's very much been Charles' number 2 as well at Ferrari. And, Sainz is a very intelligent driver as well. Obviously, he's had a lot of strategical calls which have, been quite well. He's carried that Ferrari team at some times with regards to strategy. I don't think they'd need that much at Red Bull. They've got their heads switched on quite a lot. But for some reason, I've just got a feeling about Carlos Sainz making a return to the Red Bull family. He did start out at Toro Rosso as well in 2015. Like I say, I've got no source or no hunch. It's just something that I've just thought about and I can see it happening. Obviously, Alex Albon's been linked to that seat quite extensively. I personally don't want to see Alex Albon back at Red Bull. I think he could be the lead driver at another team, and he's a driver you could build a project around, definitely. And also Ricciardo has been linked. He came back in 2024 with his eyes on that Red Bull seat. I think if he doesn't get the Red Bull seat, I think his career is probably done in Formula 1. So, moving on now to Ferrari. We've got Hamilton and Leclerc. What a driver lineup, by the way. This is going to be official. This isn't going to be wrong. Leclerc recently signed a new contract at Ferrari. We don't know how long for, because they've left it very, very private. McLaren did a similar thing with Norris. And Lewis Hamilton will make that highly anticipated move to Ferrari in 2025. The one that everybody has been talking about. So, where does that driver lineup rank in terms of all-time strength? Because it's got to be right up there. This is the strongest driver lineup I've seen in a long time. It makes me think of Hamilton and Rosberg and Mercedes. Let's hope they don't clash as much as those two did, though. Going next to Mercedes, and I'm going with Fernando Alonso. I think he's going to get this seat. Fernando Alonso is currently the only world champion on the grid that is available for 2025. Obviously, George Russell will probably stay at Mercedes. I can't see him getting rid of him and Hamilton in the same season. And plus as well, they've invested a lot of time into George Russell. And this is a real opportunity for George in 2024 to show that he can lead the team. But I do ultimately think that they will go with Fernando Alonso. He is still absolutely unbelievable. He's going to be 44 by 2025, and he is still performing at a ridiculously high level. So, you can't help but to praise it, really. He's been absolutely phenomenal at Aston Martin. And, the car did fall off last season, but his early form was unbelievable. All of those podiums was just crazy. And surely now, he has to be in that hot seat. Obviously, Kimi Antonelli is being linked with the Mercedes seat as well, but I personally wouldn't do that. I'd go more down the Leclerc avenue, and I'm going to talk about Kimi Antonelli a little bit more later on. Going on to McLaren now, I'm sticking with Norris and Piastri. I don't see why McLaren would change their lineup. Unless Lando Norris does end up at Red Bull, which I can't see happening, and I also don't think it's a very good move for him anyway, I don't see how it changes. Both Norris and Piastri are contracted past 2024, so there's not really any need to switch, and I ultimately think this driver lineup is brilliant. It is one of the best on the grid, and it is one full of potential and future talent in there. This could be a driver lineup for years, and unless it sours, I very much think it is that way. So I am going to stick with Norris and Piastri at McLaren. Moving on to Alpine, and I'm going to stay with the same lineup in Alpine as well. Ocon and Gasly are both pretty solid midfield drivers, both race winners as well. and can score the occasional podium too, which is always nice to have when you're a team like Alpine. They're not the most stable team at the minute, and they have got big problems going on. But ultimately, I don't really think the driver lineup is one of those problems. How many times am I going to say ultimately in this video? Back to topic. I do think they will stick with Gasly and Ocon. They've had a bit of history in the past, as have Verstappen and Sainz, funnily enough. But, you know, it doesn't seem to have really gone wrong for Ocon and Gasly. So, the driver lineup at Alpine I don't think is really broken, so why fix it? This might age terribly. Aston Martin next up. And who replaces Fernando Alonso? This is more hope than anything, but I'm going to go with Alexander Albon and Lance Stroll. Let's just address another elephant in the room a second. Lance Stroll is going absolutely nowhere for as long as Lawrence Stroll owns Aston Martin. I will not even entertain talk that Stroll will be dropped, because it will not happen. We know it, you know it, everyone knows it. Unless this Saudi Arabian takeover happens, I just do not see any world where Lance Stroll gets dropped. We're going to go into Alex Albon now. I think he is hot property for 2025. He was brilliant in 2023, scoring all but 1 point for Williams. And as I say, I genuinely think he could be the leader of a new project at Aston Martin. And I certainly think they could do a lot worse than Alex Albon. I'd also be looking at Carlos Sainz for that seat as well. Especially if the rumours about Albon to Red Bull do end up happening. But I'm going to stick with what I've said so far, and I'm going to go with Alex Albon and Lance Stroll. Next up, we have Sauber, and I'm going with it. Sebastian Vettel to come out of retirement. Wow. Literally. He's been linked with a couple of teams, but I can see this happening. Only, of course, if Audi stay. If they pull out, there's no way this is going to happen. But working off the basis that Audi are still going to be there, I actually predict Sebastian Vettel will get that seat. German driver, German team. Interesting. And I also see Sergio Perez, who will be available, and I still think he'll be a very suitable option, could do a lot worse than take that Sauber seat. Personally, I think Valtteri Bottas and Zhou Guanyu are both going to be let go, and they are going to want that new lineup before they change to Audi in 2026, but now there is the obvious elephant in the room that they might be pulling out. But as it stands, they haven't yet officially said they're pulling out, so I'm going to stand with Sebastian Vettel and Sergio Perez. I've got a feeling that this prediction's probably going to age badly. Anyway, on to the next. Next team I'm going to talk about is Haas. I've got Nico Hülkenberg and Ollie Bearman as the 2025 driver lineup. I do think one of the current two drivers will still be at Haas, but I think one will leave. I reckon Nico Hülkenberg will probably stay for one more year, and I do think ultimately it will come down to the fact that I think Nico Hülkenberg is still a pretty solid qualifier. He's shown in 2023 quite a few times that he has very much still got it. It just seemed to be that the Haas car just disappointed whenever Sunday came along and just absolutely fell off. So I do think that Nico Hülkenberg would still be quite a valuable asset. Hasn't got the podium yet. We can only hope he gets it in 2025. Chance would be a fine thing. And I think on the other side of the garage will be the youngster Ollie Bearman, who I do think will come up to Formula 1. Very highly rated young driver. Done a season in F2. He's the reserve driver for Ferrari and for Haas as well. And he's a kid with a very, very bright future. He will be one of the youngest drivers on the grid if he gets there, if all my predictions go well. But he will not be the very youngest. We'll get on to him shortly. RB next, and we have Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson. Daniel Ricciardo, if he doesn't get the Red Bull seat, I don't think he's going to be on the grid. He will leave RB as well. So that means that Yuki Tsunoda will stay for his 5th season and be partnered by Liam Lawson. Now, there's not many of these predictions that I am confident about. This one, however, I am absolutely certain. Liam Lawson to RB in 2025, I think, is a matter of time. He had a couple of races when he filled in for Daniel Ricciardo when he got injured, and he put in a very respectable performance. And he's always been there. I think he really does deserve his chance, and I think the Kiwi will be on the grid in 2025. Another rookie, which is always really nice to see. And I've got 3 really talented rookies that could be on the grid in 2025 if all goes well. And of course we have Yuki Tsunoda as well. Yuki Tsunoda has been linked to a couple of seats on the grid, but I just do not see him moving. So that's my predictions for RB. And finally we move on to Williams, and look at this. I have gone with Valtteri Bottas to make a return to Williams in 2025. This was where it all started for Valtteri back in 2013. He put in a few years of some very respectable performances actually, and towards the end he was cooking in that car. He moved to Mercedes in 2017, and I just always feel really that there's been some sort of unfinished business. Bottas hasn't actually been linked with a return to Williams yet. This is purely in my mental mind. But I have got him partnered with a very exciting prospect in Kimi Antonelli. Kimi Antonelli is the Mercedes young prodigy that everyone's talking about. People talk about him being the next Max Verstappen. That is some comparison, by the way. He will be an F2 in 2024. Kimi Antonelli, as we speak, is still just 18 years of age. Well, 17, he'll turn 18. And I am just so excited to see what this guy is going to get up to, because the potential that this lad has got and the buzz he is creating, I really, really hope he delivers on it. And with Mercedes, they clearly do have a strategy in mind to get Kimi Antonelli into Formula 1. He's even been linked to the big team. But this is where I see Kimi Antonelli ending up. A lot of Mercedes youngsters go to Williams. George Russell, he stayed there for a couple of years, and I can see a similar sort of thing happening with Antonelli. Hence, there you go, Valtteri Bottas and Kimi Antonelli. And that concludes my driver predictions for 2025. As you can see, these predictions are very, very random. I've not gone off any speculation whatsoever here. And, I mean, it was already wrong, really, because my initial draft didn't take into consideration Hamilton's move to Ferrari. So, just to recap, we have Verstappen and Sainz at Red Bull, Hamilton and Leclerc at Ferrari, Alonso and Russell at Mercedes, Norris and Piastri at McLaren, Ocon and Gasly at Alpine, Aston Martin we have Albon and Stroll, Sauber, Vettel and Perez, Visa, RB we have Tsunoda and Lawson, Haas we've got Hülkenberg and Behrman, and Williams we have Bottas and Kimi Antonelli. It is absolutely great to be back, and hopefully I will be back with another video shortly.